Hi everyone, welcome to Conceive with Eden with me, MKN. Today the lawyers are speaking. I'm here with Mr. Leslie Osei Inim. He's part of our team of lawyers with Conceive with Eden. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you, Senior. Great to be here.
Thank you for coming. So we are both lawyers. And for us in a country where assisted reproductive technology or birth is not very regulated, we find the challenges and we see them.
Right.
So for me, I'm not sure about you, but I'm sure you share your experience. But for me, anytime I see or I hear a story or I see a process or I witness one, my mind is always thinking about the possible legal and ethical issues that may arise. Yet, a lot of people don't see the need to involve lawyers when they are going through these transactions. What would you say are some of the reasons why lawyers need to be part of this transaction?
Thank you again, Senior. For a start, people have boxed lawyers into the space of fighting. And by fighting, I mean litigation.
Right,
So unless they sense trouble, they don't see the need for lawyers.
right,
But like you rightly said, this is a space that is yet to be properly regulated in our jurisprudence. So it's important that we look beyond the deposit and the carrying and the dropping of the baby to involve lawyers to explain the actual process. What is in it for me as a parent wanting someone to carry my child? What are my responsibilities as the person accepting to carry the child? What happens when the child comes? See, there are several nuances about it that we need to get better explanation and perspectives about before we actually get into the contract. That is why it's very important that you involve lawyers like any other day-to-day transaction.
right. So, yeah, absolutely right. And part of our role would even start from the beginning. Immediately, somebody decides that they want someone else to carry their baby. There's always, you hear around, oh, there's a contract. But how many people actually go to lawyers to ask them to draft the contracts for them? Have you ever seen any of these contracts? And what do you think of them? Especially the ones that non-lawyers drafted.
Right. So I've seen a couple of them. I was actually reading one on my way here and I found it very interesting. You could tell it had been lifted from the internet
Oh wow.
without actually understanding why they put what where.
Okay.
You get it? You have very funny clauses like the right of the surrogate to, should I say, SOMO, to terminate the
The
pregnancy
pregnancy.
if she feels her life is threatened by it.
Oh wow.
And the question is, how does she decide on her own that her life is threatened by it?
Exactly.
Get it?
Exactly.
So they are very
So you see, as a
interesting
lawyer,
clauses.
when this comes before you, your mind is just racing with so many legal and ethical questions, and how is this factual reality? How is it going to play out? And if it does, what are some of the legal implications that would arise as a result? That should not be in any surrogacy
It
contract
shouldn't
at
be.
all.
It shouldn't be. It
That
should
is
not
why
be.
you need lawyers to draft your surrogacy contracts.
But the thing is, if you don't let a lawyer do it, you only end up giving lawyers headache to try to maneuver their way when there's trouble. And my senior doesn't like that. Neither do I.
Speaking of which, share one of the maneuvers that you've had to do as a result of somebody's decision not to hire a lawyer before they started the process.
So I had this experience where the child was already born when they brought the matter to me.
In most cases, the child
Yes,
is already
the child
born.
was already born, and they
Yes.
realized they need an order before they become the legal parents of the child.
Right.
So they brought it in and they were like, "Oh, lawyer, everything has been done, and we really need to travel with the child, so we are out of time, blah, 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 blah." I'm like, "Okay, let me see the paperwork first."
Yes.
And then that became a challenge. They brought a neonatal form without the hospital written on it. So in the contract, they had it clearly stated that the child was supposed to be born in a certain hospital.
Yes.
So I requested for the neonatal form, and it came without the name of a hospital on top. So I returned it. And I was like, are you trying to tell me this child was born in the house? I mean, oh, no, no, no. The doctor gave it to us. He operates in another facility
Facility.
part time. So he did it there. But, we don't have our own neonatal form. So we just decided to take off the name of the hospital. And I'm like, you don't think these things have effects? For them, they just wanted to get it through. So I had to speak to the doctor. I actually engaged the doctor myself. And then he did confirm that he did it at that other hospital. I made him bring records of his other encounters at that hospital to convince myself that indeed he did the process, although it wasn't done in the original state hospital in the contract.
Right.
So I let it slide, just because I could convince myself that he indeed did it. But ordinarily, we should have turned it down.
Right.
You see.
In my case, one of the experiences I've had is where the hospitals would fake the records, the birth records. So they would state that the intended mother was the woman who gave birth to the child. And so on the hospital records, Amma, for instance, Amma is said to be the one who had the baby. But then when they want to travel with the child, and DNA shows Amma did not have the baby. Meanwhile, there are fictitious records that are showing that Amma had the baby. And so they are not able to take the child out of the country because of the inconsistencies. DNA is showing otherwise. The hospital is saying other things. The reason they give for that is because it's easier for them to attain the birth certificate when the hospital records show that they had the baby. But that's not the right procedure. So then it becomes a legal matter. So then now we become like mechanics. We have to come and fix the issues. And it's very cumbersome. Again, especially because this area is not properly regulated.
It's not properly regulated. That's true.
Which brings me to the issue of, so what regulation do we have?
As it stands, we do not have a regulation properly so-called.
Right.
We do not have an act. We do not have a working LI. All we have is a provision in another act, which is the
registration of birth and death.
Yes, Act 1027.
Yes, because of the same issue of the hospitals falsifying the records to say that the mothers had the baby or lack thereof, they go to birth and death. Birth and death doesn't see the record. You are not the person who gave birth, so why are you here claiming you are the mother of the child? So they were forced to recognize birth by surrogacy and assisted reproductive technology. So they brought in that amendment.
Yeah.
What does the amendment say?
Okay, so the amendment says, in very unlawyerly terms,
Yeah.
not everybody,
Layman's language.
Not everybody can carry or will carry a child. But to the extent that that person is not denied the joy or the right of parenthood, you can get someone else to carry the child. Okay. And it can be one of two ways. Either a fertilized embryo is deposited, or mind you, the embryo deposited has any connection with the partner or the spouse of the carrier. You get it? It doesn't have any connection with the carrier, whether the boyfriend, whether the husband. It's supposed to come from an external person who could be the intended father.
Okay.
And then they fertilize and then they deposit you carry. Or in the instances where the gamete of the man is used to fertilize the egg of the surrogate. So you get to carry the child, and then in the period of carrying the child, you have two options. You either go to court to be declared the legal parent of the child. That is the person commissioning the surrogate to carry the child. You either go to court to get the parental order. That is within 12 weeks after birth. 12 weeks after the deposit has been made. That is the conception.
Sorry. Yeah.
And the birth must occur within 28 weeks after. So if you do the calculation, that's 40 weeks, which is the normal gestation period. You get it. Within that period, you apply for the parental order before the child is born. Alternatively, which we face a lot of times, when the child is born, you can bring the application before 6 months. Then the court will declare you the legal parent. That is the provision the law has made for us. That if you can't carry, you have one of these two options to let someone do the carrying for you.
Yeah, so basically what the law is saying is that if you've engaged in surrogacy, you have two choices. Bring us a prenatal application. Come and apply to be the legal parent of the child before the child is born. Or if you didn't know or something happens, you couldn't do it. Now the child has been born. Before the child is 6 months old, bring a postnatal application so that we can give you, the courts can give you the legal rights of parentage. What does that mean? So when you become the legal parent, what does it mean?
So if you are the legal parent of the child, you are the one recognized by law as the father or the mother of the child. You know, my son will call you mommy, but that doesn't make you the mother.
Right.
All those things have legal implications. For instance, for purposes of inheritance.
Right.
You get it? So once you are declared the legal parent, the law will recognize you as such. And you can now, the child can now enjoy the rights that come with being the child of a particular person. And one of those examples is in cases of inheritance, as I mentioned. Yes, every child should have a parent.
Right.
So the mere fact that you carried doesn't make you
a parent.
But there's a caveat there, of course.
Yes.
Until the order is given, the one who carried the child will be considered the parent.
They presume to be the parent.
Yes,
so practically, when this happens, at least, and in the most cases, those who we encounter need this are those who want to take that the foreign clients. Let's call them the foreign clients.
Generally.
So practically, when they have this parentage order or they're declared the legal parents, what happens is that they can now go and apply for passports, or they can have their names on the birth certificate. So previously you couldn't have your name there because you didn't deliver the baby. So now if you have a prenatal parentage order or a postnatal one before you do the birth certificate, now you can have your name on the birth certificate. You can apply for the passports on their behalf as a parent. Because most of these countries, foreign countries, will ask you to do DNA.
DNA, yes.
And of course, in the surrogacy process, it is very likely, more likely than not, that at least one parent will not be the biological parent. And so the parentage order gives you the right to act where the DNA denies you. Because some countries will say if the DNA doesn't show that you are the parent, you cannot apply for passport or you cannot travel with the child. But now with the parentage order, which is naming you the legal parent of the child, you can. So that's some of the advantages of doing the parental.
Just to chip this thing in about the DNA. So
Yes.
I had an experience where a very affluent couple, they've been married for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
They still don't have a child. So they thought of the whole surrogacy thing. Someone mentioned to them that it's now possible in Ghana. So they came down to do it. And right after they commissioned the surrogate to carry the baby, the woman started acting along to the extent that she even wore a fake bum.
Yeah, some of the hospitals actually, it's part of their process. So when they do the surrogacy for you, they give you a fake bum.
Yes.
It is very, very unnecessary.
The woman was wearing a fake bum, going around praising the Lord here and there. And then they came to me after the child was born. Okay, so I do the application. And on the face of the contract, there was nothing to show that they used a donor egg, donor sperm.
Right.
It's very important. So the presumption was the woman couldn't carry. So it was their own specimens that was fertilized and introduced to the carrier. And then I get to court, going to move my quick application and take my money.
You know, it's 1 day process.
The judge was, okay,
5 minutes,
counsel,
you're done.
Right. She starts writing. I've heard submissions of counsel. It is hereby ordered that the applicants submit themselves to one of these labs for a DNA. Agent 2. I didn't have a problem with that. I thanked the court. We step out, and now they come to me. Counsel, there's a problem. And I'm like, which is? We use donors. Like, I wish the ground could just open and swallow me. So
Wow.
I just walked back into the courtroom. Luckily, those proceedings are in chambers. They had called another case. I said, please, there's something I need to bring to the court's attention. I get back. I'm a lady. There was this fine detail which escaped us, but this is the situation. And I took the blasting of my life because as a lawyer, I ought to know
Yes.
my client's case holistically. But she allowed me to file a supplementary and introduce that fact. And then she still insisted on the DNA. So something that should have taken 5 minutes, we ended up spending almost 4 months. Almost 4 months. So you see, instead of bringing small money for the lawyers to put the contract in order.
He says small money.
Oh, it's necessary.
But it's small money.
No, but these things are real, and
yes,
it takes a toll on you as a lawyer, because you ought to.
Yes, even for the intended parents, because in the fertility journey, before a couple will decide to do assisted reproductive tech, they've tried everything. They've gone years of trying the natural and waiting on God, and everything is not happening. Then eventually they go to the hospitals for assistance. They'll take pills, take potions, take everything, go to prayer camps. It's not working. Then they'll try taking pills, doing IUI, is not working. Then they'll try the IVF, it's not working. And like I always say that your last option to have possible biological birth is surrogacy.
Yes.
Because after surrogacy is adoption, So, and it's expensive. So before you get here, there's so many number of years wasted.
Yeah.
The money that's gone waste, even for you to have a successful surrogacy, is a lot of money. So when you do this and then everything just goes down the drain, it's wasted time, efforts, emotional trauma.
It's hard.
It's very hard. And yes, we are lawyers, but we don't enjoy cleaning up.
It's true.
When we could have avoided this in the first place. Cleaning up is a lot of work sometimes.
Too much work.
Yes.
All the time.
Personally, I've had to go round some of the facility centers to try and educate them, because if you look at some of the things that they do, the ethical, I cringe. Like, couples really do not know that there are couples who do not know that they have been subjected to assisted reproductive birth. Some do not know. So let me give you an example. You are shocked. There's a man who went with his wife to one of these centers, and then the woman, so they were trying to have children, they couldn't. So they went, and I think it was his understanding that they were going to have a surrogate, but they were going to use both their gametes. But the woman asked for donor eggs. The man had no idea. She was wearing a fake bum throughout. I don't know how she was successful, but she wore a fake bum. So the man didn't know. They had triplets. And then after the birth, the man came to the hospital and said, the children don't look like his wife. And then the hospital, they knew that was not the woman's biological children, but they couldn't tell the man. They didn't tell the man that. So they just went and said, oh, go and do DNA. Because they knew the DNA results would come back positive.
Will be excluded.
Yes. So if your wife was the one that has given birth, as for you, you are the only one in doubt. So if your DNA says is you, then there's nothing wrong.
Right.
So he goes to do DNA. The DNA shows that they are his children. So so he came and he said the children don't have his wife's blood group. They're not. Yeah, the blood group is different from his wife's blood group. So they said go and do DNA. So he went and did DNA, and the DNA shows that those are his kids. So he just keeps quiet and goes home. But as a lawyer, my head is screaming.
You can see through
with the ethical and legal issues that can arise.
It's a problem because, like you rightly pointed out earlier, we don't have a working legal regime. So people are just doing all kinds of funny and shady stuff. I mean, I'm aware, and I've seen it happen, where they get kids from some of these KIAs in town.
Oh.
They are literally buying the babies.
Wow.
You get it? They buy the baby, and then when you come, oh, we engaged someone earlier. The person said he wanted a boy, but it came out as a girl. So the person has rejected the baby. So, instead of going through the whole process of starting afresh, we have a baby we can give you.
Right.
Because either way, you are going to use donors.
Yeah.
You get it? So, since this baby has now been left here,
come and take the baby.
And see, at that point, you're at your lowest point. You are extremely vulnerable. So you just
if they tell you X amount of money and come for the baby. But this is
See,
technically an adoption that is
exactly,
not going through an adoption
exactly.
process.
You see, and they come with very funny records.
Yes.
You ask for, in one of those instances, I asked to meet the surrogate on a given day, and they meet the intending parents on a different day, and they meet the agency itself and speak to them. They came back saying that the girl is out of town and
They give you the stories.
They give me the stories.
They give you the stories.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I'll wait.
Yeah.
But then the pressure keeps mounting. The pressure keeps mounting. Oh, counsel, we don't have time, and blah, 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 blah. I was telling you earlier, a situation where the maternity book showed the kid was born in February 2024. But if you look at the antenatal records, the child should have been born in July 2023.
Right.
I raised the concern and, we might have picked another person's booklet. Let's bring it back. They bring it back.
As if to say they just...
So it's like they are literally manufacturing babies and sharing.
Yes.
Under the guise of surrogacy.
Yeah. And another issue that I also have is where the embryos are developing and then they inseminate some and then the rest, they are being sold. So the rest are being sold because for the couple, probably they just, when you're at your lowest, even one child you take.
Yes.
So when the insemination is done and they have one, so maybe 2, 3 are inseminated, one is successful or 2, they have twins, they're excited, they're overjoyed. But the rest of the eggs that were fertilized will be sold to another. Yeah. So you see, with the legal and ethical questions, there are so many.
1,001 of them.
There are so many.
1,001
But
of them.
that is the reason why you need a proper contract for this process.
Exactly.
But what are some of the things that you think must definitely be in your surrogacy contract? Whatever you do, it must be included.
Parties.
Okay.
I mean,
Right.
the parties must be there. And generally, the obligations of either side must be clearly spelled out. This is what the intended parents are going to do for the surrogate. This is what the surrogate is going to do. This is how she's going to be taken care of, which is very important for me.
Yes, it's very important.
Because carrying a baby is not an easy job.
Yeah, I find that some of the hospitals, because they are cutting corners, they let the surrogates stay in their own houses. They let them go. Some don't show up. Some go, they are not monitored, they drink, the health
You get it.
They're just left by themselves. Psychological, physical health is not properly
Because
taken
you
care
see, for a lot of the surrogates, it's a contract.
of. Yes.
There is that detachment from
Everything
you
else you're
actually
doing.
going through the natural process to conceive. So it's a pure contract. It's like you carry my bag for me till I get to my junction.
Right.
So it behoves on you, the intended parent, and that is why the intended parents need the lawyers the most.
Yes, that is why the agencies need to make sure
that there are proper contracts in place.
Yes.
Because you need to have it spelled out. Where she will even attend her antenatal, where she'll be taken care of and all of that. Because you need to put her in your shoes and treat her as you would. The surrogate also needs to understand that, look, this thing I'm doing, although I'm doing it for you, my health is at risk too. So you must also take that proper care of yourself. And then, just so that you don't piss them off. Because you see, like I said, it's a contract. So if I wake up tomorrow morning and I feel like eating chicken, pregnancy and cravings, like they say, it's 5 and 6.
They will tell you.
If it's that same how drink the donut, how many times do I chew chicken in a year with Christmas and all of that? If you were in your house, we'll be chewing chicken. You piss them off. It will have an effect, and overall, the child will be the one affected.
Yes, and especially with the cases where the intended families house their surrogates in their personal homes. I've heard too many of those stories.
You see, another important thing is that disconnect must be there.
Yes.
When I say disconnect, there shouldn't be that direct relationship between the surrogate and the intended parents, because hate it or love it, if you carry a child, okay, even if you use your phone to take a photo of a friend and it's a nice photo, there are days you pick your phone and look at the photo and say, oh, that's a nice photo. Sometimes I have to beg her to send my own pictures of her phone to me. Then imagine carrying a child, and then you give the child out, yes, but the psychology of it stays with you, because it's your body that has gone through the transformation. So you may be tempted to want to see your child on quotes, and then it becomes an issue. There's also the possibility of trying to continue enjoying
the benefits
of the surrogacy period. Because if you are like me who choose chicken once a year, and now you just snap your fingers and you choose chicken, you may not want to lose that. So it's important.
They come with chicken, they'll ask you for skincare things.
But they deserve it. You see,
I agree.
So far as it's within that period, it's highly permissible. That is why it's important to create that disconnect, so that post birth, they don't start telling you, going to the kids to go and be like, hey, do you know that I'm your mother? So it's important the contracts capture all these details. There are 1,001 of them, but of course we can't sit here and tell you everything.
Exactly.
That is why you need
absolutely.
That is why you need to engage lawyers. Don't consider this as legal advice.
Of course, it's definitely not legal advice.
It
is not. Please come and pay legal fees, and then we can tell you legal advice.
It's a whole complicated issue, and I keep saying, now that we don't have a working law, your best and safest bet is a contract that protects you as an intended parent on one part and as a surrogate on the other part.
That's why usually you find that surrogacy contracts have a lot in there. So when I see contracts that are half pages, I'm like, what is this? This is not a contract. Even one pager is not a contract.
You get it.
And we cannot afford not to put everything in there. Definitely, maybe we might not think of all the possible, but as much as we can, we have to put it in there, because there's no law to regulate, so that it is clear. So let me see. Let me give one last scenario, and then maybe we can end our conversation. It's getting juicy.
I know.
So let's talk a little bit, because we haven't spoken about sperm donors at all, and then egg donors, the donors. Now we have known donors and unknown donors. Known donors are the ones that, I need a sperm donor. You're my friend. I call Leslie and I say, Leslie,
if we have a fine way like this, our children will be fine. So,
okay, so come and give me your sperms, and then let me have a baby. And Leslie comes, agrees to do. He's a known donor. That means that I know who he is. He knows what he's doing. He knows who he's giving his sperms to. Same with an egg donor. You know who the person is. She knows who she's giving her egg to. What are some... And then an unknown one is the one that you don't know the person. Random person comes. So when you come to conceive with Eden, you want to donate your sperm. You go through the process. You don't know who we are going to give your sperm to. The person doesn't know who you are. That's unknown. Now, what are the legal liabilities the same for both known and unknown gametes? Donors, gamete donors.
It cannot be the same. It cannot be the same, because you see, if let me keep it very simple, understanding. Having a child comes with responsibilities.
Yeah.
So as a parent, you'll be expected to provide at the least maintenance of the child.
Right.
You get it. And the easiest way of establishing parentage of any child is either by biological means, which is usually through the DNAs, or in the case of an adoption, the actual adoption order to show that
there's a court order.
Yes, there's a court order to show that you are the parent of this child. Okay, those are the two instances. And once we establish these two, and you are the parent, you are saddled with that responsibility. In simple and plain terms. So if you say, I am known, I know you, you know me, or just donate, not to worry about it, I'm going to take care of my child and all of that, and you change your mind tomorrow, there's the real risk of me being forced to assume paternity of the child, responsibility as a father.
Yes.
So it takes me back to the issue of the disconnect.
Yeah.
But in the event where it's unknown, you take your child away.
So you find that with known donors, a lot of times, known donors are asked to sign contracts that say that they are waiving parental rights, they'll never be in the child's life, The only thing is that they are known. that contract we found are not enforceable.
You can't
That contract
enforce
will
it.
not be enforceable. The courts have held in other jurisdictions that because you knew, you were present, and usually, if Leslie is my donor, he will even call and ask, was
How are
it
we doing?
was it successful? Did we get a baby?
Do
You
you know?
know, those things he would know. So as long as you know and you are there, tomorrow if I need money, I'm handicapped, and I say, Leslie, come and pay your child's school fees, the court will ask you to come and pay.
You won't even ask. Every birthday, I may show up as a present.
But with the unknown donors, there's no such liability. So when it comes to conceive with Eden, we make you sign a consent form. We explain to you, you're given a lawyer that would explain to you that you have no legal responsibility towards the child that may or may not arise as a result of your donation. And so that's different. Yes, so it's very important to know if you decide to be a known donor that you may be legally liable for that child in the nearest future, irrespective of what contract you are signing.
Yeah.
So it's very important.
Very, very important.
Now, so Leslie, any last words?
I think my last words will be on two grounds. It is important that as professionals, and when I say professionals, I mean everyone involved in the assisted
Reproductive birth
process.
Yeah.
You take your due diligence seriously, because it's the due diligence that will raise issues of ethics.
Yes.
So if as an agency you realize that these people want A, and you don't explain the details to them just because you want to get paid or you think they are desperate, you're at fault. Because ultimately, once you trigger that reaction, it follows through all the way to the last person who would attempt to finalize the process, and that is the lawyer.
Yes.
And then he'll be saddled with the burden of trying to right all those wrongs. So due diligence is very important. And we also need to, in the shortest possible future, and I know that with people like you, that can happen anytime soon.
It is on the way.
We need to get a working regulation. We need to be able to license and control the agencies as to how they operate and all of
Right.
that. And then save that. I think it's a good opportunity for people to become parents. So we shouldn't be too traditional about it and make it look like it is something out of space. When the issue of Christianity, I mean religion generally,
I
and
don't even know how
science
that's-
coincide, it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
But the God who puts kids in people's bellies, wombs, is the same God who gives people sense to come up with some of these innovations.
Yeah.
You understand? So I think we should be more open-minded. The world is evolving,
Yeah.
and then try to embrace it as a part of our development and then do it right.
I'm very excited we had this conversation. It's really nice to talk about it and to create the awareness and the education. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Hopefully we'll be here again.
I will, or
Thank
I shall.